And we're back.
Play a video of Trump and YouTube really comes after it hard.
He didn't even question election integrity. No, here's really something kind of funny. So I have like a warning on the YouTube channel because I dare talk about my experience when I went to go vote. And because of that, I could get the warning removed if I went through their test to say that like, hey, I understand your rules now. And the entire thing was, this person claims that there was election interference even though it's clear there wasn't any. Is that against YouTube's rules? And it's like, yes, it is what you have to click. And it says, that is correct because we protect democracy and we want to keep elections, secure. It was like 7 questions that was nothing but that. It was so insane. I hated doing it in school and I hate doing it now where you have to give the answer they want to hear and not the actual answer. That pissed me off so much in school, and on YouTube, it still pisses me off.
So it's kind of like laying back in the chair, the bright lights going on and your eyes open.
But that in 1984, what was it? Was 2 plus 2 equal?
I tell you what, man, the movie adaptation of 1984 is incredibly creepy too.
They did a good job because I think in the book wasn't they had like a rat or something like that instead that was going to torture him or tear his like face out basically if he didn't comply.
That was the book.
But I like
Yep.
the movies better where because they were doing the electrocuting him instead, which I thought actually made more sense for what like that kind of large society would jump to with using electricity to just torture you until you eventually agreed instead of just saying, hey, agree or this rat will get you kind of deal. Like I felt that was actually a good change, which is rare that I'll say about a movie's adaptation of a book. 1984 is great. Everyone needs to read it.
You write it for modern day New Yorkers. The rat might make a little more sense and be more relatable.
That's true. What did you see that video of that homeless dude? Like all the mice scatter out from underneath him. Like,
yeah. I mean, the last time I was there, for an extended period, it pretty much every night coming back from the train to the hotel, there were rats just running everywhere.
Oh no, I saw some massive ones when I was over there.
And you know where I stayed? I wasn't staying in a bad part of town.
I'll say this: I saw some like pretty good sized rats, kind of like near Manhattan and all that stuff. But when I went to the Bronx, like there was one office we had over there that was in a bad part of it, and I swear to God, it was a rat about the size of a football. It was late. I saw it run across the road. I thought it was a possum at first. Like, I forgot who I was with, but I even said, like, that looked like a possum. He goes, no, that's just New York rats.
Yeah, I tell you what, the subway rats are pretty large too, because you can see them scurrying all around.
Oh, I stayed the hell away from the subways while I was there. At least during COVID, one thing that was nice about that was the roads were clear. So I didn't, driving around there where it wasn't too bad.
Man, I take the trains everywhere. I don't know. I kind of like it until you get to a certain full type of cars where you're bodied up against everybody. I don't like that at all. It's kind of like Elaine on Seinfeld when she gets caught. I get that same kind of an anxiety. But other than that, I'm a train guy getting around the city. But the rats are everywhere. So that's how that all started. 1984 rats. It would relate. New Yorkers could relate better to it.
This is how a train of logic goes, right? Like, it's almost like a Norm Macdonald joke at times where it starts here and then somehow like goes all the way over here.
Because the light was on.
That's all it took. That's all it took to get to subway rats. Okay, so the stream got cut off, but we were talking about, of course, the
you were actually playing the Trump. You were playing the Trump video, and our YouTube stream gets cut
out. So what he was saying was, of course, just that, hey, Vivek, he did really well. Actually, I was really surprised. He went from like 0 to 8%. I mean, I don't know why he already dropped out of the race. He was doing a really good job. And then the crowd starts chanting VP, 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 and he goes, hey, we love Vivek. He's going to be great having on the campaign trail, and I'm sure we're going to be working with him for a long time. And the crowd, of course, goes wild thinking that he's implying Vivek as VP, which he obviously isn't. Like, I mean, he's implying it, but he's not going to choose Vivek as VP, all right? As much as I would love to see it happen, 2 things. The interaction of them shaking hands right there shows, of course, that they are 2 alpha guys. They are not going to be good as, campaign partners in that way. It just wouldn't be done. Vivek he goes off talking about things that I love to hear, but that Trump does not talk about. Like, Trump does not talk about, hey, let's add in tests to make sure you're competent enough to vote, right? Like, that's not Trump's wheelhouse. That's not where he goes with things. Vivek is all about that kind of stuff. It would be a terrible match when it comes to actually campaigning overall. He's going to pick, again, I know people want to say Nikki Haley. I think he's going to pick probably more like a Kristi Noem because it's still a woman. And let's face it, unfortunately, that kind of matters these days. It shouldn't, but it does. And she hasn't said anything bad about him. I mean,
no, she's already said that I'm for Trump, so she's already thrown her support.
There you go. Yeah, and she covers the woman, having a woman as your VP, which is stupid. So I hate it, but it is what it is.
I'm an Noem fan. I love how she handled COVID and everything else in South Dakota.
She did a great job with it.
I love the fact that she hunts and rides horses and is just, I don't know. I like it a lot.
My thing is, and this might sound controversial, I don't think there should ever be a female president. There, I said it. There should never be a female president. And for one reason, the president is the commander in chief. All right, the military is over 90% men. All right, a woman should not have that role. Senator, by all means. Congresswoman, by all means. Supreme Justice, by all means. When it comes to Commander-in-Chief of the United States military, I'm sorry, it makes no sense to have someone who is not bounded by the draft to ever have that position. It's as simple as that. I know people say, oh, Trump didn't serve in the military. I don't care. He was still bounded by, to a point bounded by the draft to a certain degree. Obviously, he kind of got out of it. Smart move, actually, when you look at, what was going on. I actually don't fault many people for getting out of that one. But the point is that men in those compositions don't normally follow women too well or don't want to. All you have to do is talk to a bunch of people you serve and they'll say that kind of stuff. It's just such a dumb idea to have a woman as commander-in-chief. That's where I am with it. And so having one as VP...
I absolutely cannot wait to see the comments on your short for this one.
I'm going to make a short of this one. I will. If the AI doesn't want to create one, I'll create one myself, damn it. I will make sure everyone knows there should never be a woman president or vice president. Everything else, 100% okay. With that said, Kristi Noem is a good choice, politically speaking, as well as Tulsi Gabbard would be a very good choice, politically speaking.
I'm not gonna agree with you on there should never be. I'm old enough to and was a big fan of Margaret Thatcher and some other women leaders that have been very strong. And
the exception to the rule does not break the rule.
And I still think that the right woman, I'm perfectly okay with.
You're okay with that. Just as long as we get rid of the 19th Amendment, we're cool, right?
Oh, repeal the 19th. That's a running joke around, huh?
Hey, I like Vivek's strategy. If the draft is completely voluntary, you don't have to be forced into it. However, you can't vote without signing up for it. There we go. If women want to sign up for the draft and take on that amount of responsibility, by all means. But people who are not having to be sent over and die for their country should not get a vote and a say on who does get sent over to die for our country. All right, if you're not in that same risk category, or ever had to experience that risk category, you should have no business in saying anything involving politics, period.
So then other than president, it doesn't matter because Congress absolutely has no say in war these days.
Oh, yeah, apparently so.
they have completely ceded that responsibility to the executive branch.
Well,
but no, I'm not going to go that far. Now, the one amendment I don't like is the one right there around the 19th. The direct vote for Senate is like the worst thing that we've done.
Literally,
senators don't represent the people.
So I was asked when I was going to go work for Americans for Prosperity at one point. When the interview, one of the questions they asked me was, if I could make a change to the Constitution, what would it be? And that was my answer. I said, remove the 17th Amendment. And it was funny because according to them, they never heard anyone suggest that. They heard people suggesting adding amendments, amendments to strengthen things like the Second Amendment, or, reaffirming stuff like the First, but they didn't have anyone who ever said get rid of the 17th at that point. And I had to explain to it, no, like, listen, this would fix the majority of problems currently in our country. Right there. There's no such thing as a silver bullet, but damn it, it is close. All right. It is very close to a silver bullet when it comes to fixing this country. The whole point of the Senate, we like to talk about the three branches of government, obviously, the executive, the legislative, judicial. The thing is, though, there was another check and balance built into our country, and that was the Senate. The fact that our senators were elected by the state senators, or really, the states can decide how they set their senators, I guess, but for the most part, the senators you elected to your state senate would come together, pick two amongst them to send over to represent the state, not you, but the state's interest. And because of that, you didn't have this crap where it's, senators going around and having to, it was never meant to represent the people. You need something to keep the state's rights intact. And now we no longer have that. We have popular vote for everything, basically, now. And it's just complete lunacy. It makes absolutely no sense to have senators when you already have congressmen for that purpose. The purpose of the Senate is to secure the rights of the state, nothing more. And that was the check and balance when it came to the problems that came about with democracy, as well as the problem that came about with having a strong centralized power like the presidency. Like that, without that checks and balance in place, we will always lean to the evils of democracy, not the good parts of it, because we have too much of it right now. Democracy is I think it was Aristotle that said democracy is the shortest lived and bloodiest form of government there's ever been. And he's 100% right on it. And we have to protect ourselves from the dangers of democracy to our fullest extent, because right now, that is what the Democrats are pushing. They are trying to get us to a pure democracy setup at this point, where even the president will be elected by pure democracy, letting places like, of course, New York and California crush smaller states whenever they wish. It is the biggest way to get to a strong centralized authority where they have full control over everything that happens in the country. And the 17th Amendment was that first domino to fall, in my opinion, when it came to getting us to where we are today.
So we can go through the Google archives. We can go through every archive known to man. There's never been a more impassioned speech about the 17th Amendment. You really, man, you brought the energy and the passion for the 17th repeal. I like it.
It's just, we keep looking for the answers to our problems, and it's right there. It's right there. Just repeal the 17th and we will fix. Because here's the thing. Even in states that have Democrat senators, guess what? If it was the state senators that decided who would represent them, those are majority Republicans in those states. When you look at stuff like Illinois, their state senate, usually in most elections, lean more Republican, not Democrat. What happens is, of course, the popular vote gets the governor to be a Democrat and stuff like that. And then, of course, the popular vote pushes the senators over the edge to the point where they have Democrat senators. But in a lot of these states that are Democrat controlled, they would have Republican senators who would be representing the interest of the state's power instead of course, the large centralized force of people in places like Chicago. It's the closest thing we got to a silver bullet. I can't think of a single thing other than that would bring more positive change in this country. Maybe the 19th. No, I'm joking.
Well,
it would bring the positive change when you look at the stats. I'm just saying.
We can look at taxes and fiat money might make a pretty decent change for some things too. But
get rid of the Fed. That probably would be a bigger one.
I do like the fact that you are advocating to take us back to being a republic, because that's the way we're supposed to be.
Well, 100%. I mean, I think there's that old question of where are you more likely to find justice? And the options are a king, a council of elders, or the populace overall. And of course, all of those are corrupt to some extent or another, right? Obviously the king, dictator powers, they can say wherever they want. You're not going to find justice with the king. You're not going to find justice with the populace because it's mob rule, right? If you had pure democracy, there's a good chance things like slavery might not have ever ended. I mean, it would have ended far later. Same thing with segregation, because guess what? white people were the majority. If they wanted to keep it in place, they could have easily done so if they really wanted to. Of course, Council of Elders, well, then you have some class issues where they could start oppressing people, similar to what happened when you look at, I forget what they're called all of a sudden, in Rome, with the way the senators were separated from the people to such a dramatic degree that they didn't even concern themselves with many of the problems that the, plebeians were facing. It was, you have to have actually all three of them in place to properly balance each other out. We don't have that anymore at all. We don't have a Council of Elders. That's the one thing we're currently missing in our governance. We need to bring it back. I know people go, well, that's buying into the concept of having...
We reserve the executive branch for our elders.
That senior living home thing was funny with Biden. That was hysterical. The White House senior living. But no, it's a...
That was a dilly meme.
It comes from this whole idea that, like, people want to believe in equality, but not in the way it should be believed in, right? People, when we talk about equality, we need to be talking about in the sense of we're all born, like, at our very soul, we are equal, right? At our very soul, we are equal. Other than that, we are terribly unequal. Guess what? Someone who believes in flat Earth versus someone who can show me, like, the science and satellite imagery of the Earth, one of them's more equal than the other when it comes to advice I'm going to listen to. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying, no, these people are really dumb and should not have really, I'm not going to care about their opinion, and these people are much smarter on the issue and I'm going to care about theirs. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever, and we do that in our day-to-day lives already. We don't sit there and take, maybe I should rephrase that. We shouldn't take advice on how to lose weight from a fat person, right? Like, it's not what should be done. Unfortunately, as I say that, I realize we actually kind of do in today's world, unfortunately. But when you look at who's in control of most health departments these days.
I'm just disappointed that you don't believe all the evidence that we live under a dome on a flat surface. I can't.
We're on a turtle's back as he goes through space.
You're falling for that trap of living on a sphere. You really think so?
What about the ice shelf? I mean, come on. Why have we never gone through Antarctica? What are they hiding there?
Yeah, that's just a big wall. You don't want to get on the other side of that white wall.
People back in, 1,000 or so BC didn't calculate the circumference of the Earth. That's all a bunch of baloney. That doesn't actually happen. Okay, well, let's jump to something.
The great thing that we do agree with is, regardless of whether there's truth in this and this is a conspiracy or not, every voice should be heard so that we can make fun of the dummies.
Yes, everyone should be allowed a voice. Not everyone should be allowed to vote.
And I'm telling you what, man, the comments on the shorts are going to be classic. This is going to be fun.
Well, listen, with all of our,
I don't want to. I just don't want to be guilty by association here. I got a reputation.
I'll crop you out. Make sure you're not. I'm just saying. I mean, Robert Hyland did a great job. Service guaranteeing citizenship. No, I don't want service guaranteeing citizenship, because then they can decide what type of service that is. That is a utopian vision, not a realistic one overall. Great book, though. Totally different than the movie. It's not even remotely fascist. They're a libertarian paradise, actually, overall, for the most part. But you do need restrictions on who can and can't vote. I think there was a video going around recently of a guy going up to, like, all these people and asking them, hey, if you're trying to get, 80 miles, if you're trying to go somewhere and that's 80 miles away and you're going 80 miles per hour, how long will that take you? And the amount of people, I know they cherry pick this stuff, but the fact you can find anyone over the age of 12 who can't figure that out. I'm sorry, the person who says 2 hours on that question should never be allowed to vote. In fact, there's a chance they probably should be put, like, in possibly like a mental institution to be checked out, because I don't know I can't fathom how you can be so stupid. Yet they find tons of these people and their vote counts just as much as yours does. And it's bizarre.
So the old saying is, and this was a George Carlin joke, as a matter of fact. He said, think of how dumb the average American is, and then think that over half the people are even dumber than that, right? Except I think he said stupider, which
I think he
is
said
always a
stupider
funny
too.
word.
Yeah. I
That's a
mean,
funny word.
you're just lucky back then he didn't use like the R word instead. I mean, he went with everything.
Yeah, but there's a lot of truth to that, because I don't think that some of those, you said they cherry pick, but I don't know that it's really that much of an outlier.
So here's the thing. I have a friend who's very liberal on the verge of basically on the verge of communist, and even they agree about the fact of their view of it. It should be the citizenship test that we give to anyone immigrating to the country. If you can't pass a basic citizenship test that we expect immigrants to pass, why are you voting? Now, their reasoning is because they're seeing all the dumb hicks in the woods basically saying that they wouldn't be able to pass it either, and so they think they could eliminate a bunch of Republican voters. I'm looking at that saying, look at the cities and how idiotic most of them are. That will eliminate a bunch of Democrat voters. However, at the end of the day, if you can't pass that, I'm happy you're eliminated no matter what side of the aisle you're on, because I'm sorry, your opinion should mean nothing in politics if you can't pass something so ridiculously simple as that. I mean, if it was up to me, I'd make it a heck of a lot harder than what the immigration test is. But I don't know how. I don't know how someone so dumb could have such an equal voice in governments. It makes no sense to me.
Well, one of our founding father heroes, Thomas Jefferson, the voice of the people, he had a lot of faith that the wisdom of the populace would outweigh everything else. And I was a Jeffersonian Republican for a long, long time, but I've kind of lost my faith in the voice of the people.
Yeah, I'm not saying I go as far as Adams did when it came to stuff like, wanting to arrest people who spoke ill of the government at times and things like that, but he did bring up some very good points in some of his writings.
And I don't know why my brain went here, but you bring up Adams, and we've been talking about the ridiculousness in the current legal system. Where is a John Adams that would stand up and represent the redcoats at the Boston Massacre because it was the right thing to do? And that was democracy in action that was going to kill them all. That was
it was mob rule entirely. Like
so where are the statesmen that I just don't know? I don't know that they exist.
I don't think they can exist in the modern climate. I don't think it's capable for them to exist currently. I mean, because let's face it, a lot of that was what the Republicans were doing for a long time with the Democrats, saying, no, we can't just sit there and go and convict them back for, treason or whatever, with Biden. We can't just impeach Biden like they impeached Trump, because we need to make sure we stand by our principles and all of that, which makes sense if, again, if you're all kind of playing the same game overall. But at least back then, even when you looked at the mob, there were still some cultural connections there that made it so when he did it, I mean, you could still have something to connect over afterwards, whether it be religion, whether it be just your home state pride or whatever, that there was still something that still connected the fabric of America, while now we are completely split to a degree that I don't think it's possible for someone like that to come forward and get anything really done. I don't see how it's possible.
I tell you, it's tough. It's tough for me. You know how I feel about. I'll talk to anybody. I'll listen to anybody. I really believe that even if I agree, if we disagree 99% of the things, I'm willing to sit and talk with you about the 1% we agree on, and let's see how we can move forward on something positive together. So I'm all for these things, but I have a certain set of values that I'm not gonna bend on.
Well, I've had to deal with this.
And what I'm about to say might get us cut off, but there's two genders. I believe in traditional marriage.
Yep.
I'm a pro-life. I have certain things that I'm going to stick to, and I'm not going to bend on those. Yeah. But I will find the 1% that we can move forward on, and I'm not going to hate or really denigrate someone because they believe differently than me on those. But I'm not going to go against my values.
So I'm
willing to work with anybody.
See, I've had to deal a little bit with this with the straight enough, the gaming YouTube channel when I've done streams where people will bring up someone in the comments, someone will bring up some, whether it be like the people who did like the Matrix, and they'll start calling them by, a woman instead of a man. And I'll actually go, yeah, that dude made a good movie, something like that. Because again, I'm not going to play around with it. I'm not going to sit there and hey, we're walking a line here. I'm not going to play make believe. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it.
Well,
So
we said this before, but if they had anorexia or any other mental disorder that led to body dysmorphia, would we allow children to mutilate themselves over that?
there's a whole dysmorphia that is where people believe they should be born disabled. And because of that, they'll do stuff like throw bleach in their eyes to make themselves blind, or even cut off a limb in some cases. Just crazy things like that. And people go, well, that's clearly insane. I'm like, I'm sorry. Actually, I don't think cutting off your hand is as crazy as cutting off your junk down there. Okay, like if I had to lose one, I'm going to be honest. I'm losing my left hand. I know which one I'm going to lose. If you tell me you're going to break my legs or break that, I know which one I'm going to say break. So it's funny because they'll sit there and say, oh, that stuff's insane. Obviously, they need help. But then someone says they want to mutilate down there, and we instantly go, oh, they're so brave, and that's such a great and positive thing to do for their life, and yada, yada, yada. Even though we know what the stats are, unfortunately, from those kind of, from people who are afflicted in that way, right? Again, yeah, sometimes we make jokes, I guess, at their expense in a way, because it is a little crazy. And of course, when they sit there and go out of their way to try to push it on others, then of course we're going to make jokes and we're going to oppose it very heavily. But overall, we both have extreme concern for these people as is. I mean, it has the highest suicide rate of almost any affliction ever in all mankind. It is obscene how high it is. It's over 50% in some studies. Right. That's terribly sad.
And the even bigger problem is the medical establishment is making it worse.
And so our view is not, because they're saying, oh, you're for transgenocide and stuff like that. No. All right, we're not for these people, anything harm happening to these people. That's what we're trying to stop, is harm happening to these people. We want them to get actual help. We want them to get better. We want them not to go this route where they could have a possibly over 50% high suicide rate. We want to see them not mutilate their bodies because of an affliction they might have. We want to see a stop to that because we care about them. We want them to get better. We don't want to see them struggle through this, something that they'll struggle with till the day they die. I mean, why would you wish this upon someone?
On the other side of the equation, we know that it's become a social contagion that's leading.
100%. But we also know for a fact
we want to stop the social contagion because it's rotting us from the inside.
Why would you want more people to go in a certain way that could lead to that high of a suicide rate? Like, why would you want that for your kids? Why would you want that for anyone else around you? It is such, if you're talking about the side that really hates people, I say that the side that really, wants people to suffer, or the side telling young kids, yes, mutilate yourself and go the way where you're going to have like a 50% chance of committing suicide. Those are the people who don't care about what's happening to others. Not us, who are saying, no, we want to help these people get better. And again, I know you're, again, down the rabbit hole, I guess, because you were just saying, of course, there's certain things people shouldn't buckle on. And of course, we go through this. But I'll be honest, this is one of those issues that I am just never going to buckle on. You're never going to convince me of this, that this is the right move to go about doing.
Let's say you're on a committee or you're trying to accomplish something, and there's people who believe otherwise that are on the team with you. You're willing to work with them on other issues to accomplish something worthwhile. I am, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Because another key tenet that I'm not going to budge is individual freedom.
So here's the thing, though.
But that individual freedom can't infringe on forcing me to say things and do things that are against mine. It has to go both ways.
So yeah, about to ask, because here's the question. If they say they're willing to work with you on all these other things you want to get done, but they demand that you call them by the pronoun, that you call them by the name, do you then say, I'm going to do it? Or do you say, how about we just don't talk about that issue, period, and we focus on what we need to get accomplished?
Yeah. Let's focus on what we need to get accomplished.
Because what I see a lot of people doing is they'll capitulate to those simple, what they consider the simple demands to get the stuff they want to get done. But those aren't simple, right? I mean, this is a completely, I'm being careful with my verbiage here because of YouTube, but it is just the wrong outlook on reality overall.
Well, I mean, look at I tell you who's holding their ground so far, and it's our buddy Jordan Peterson, because they're absolutely forcing him into a re-education or lose your license.
Which is so Maoist, I cannot believe it.
Well, you sure you can. You know who the you know
Oh, that's
who the
true.
prime
You're
minister
right.
is.
I can believe it. I just still
Baby Castro.
I don't want to believe it.
With Baby Castro as your prime minister, you know what's going to happen.
You know, of all the conspiracy theories I've seen, that's one that I'm kind of like going, that might be true.
Whether there's any
He
blood,
looks remarkably like him.
whether there's any blood relation or not, there's enough.
There's an
similarity
ideology
to go
connection
with it.
regardless.
Yeah, we can go with it.
I mean, he's a communist. I mean, he's come and multiple times he's admitted to say, or what do you say, that he wishes Canada was more like China because China can actually go and get stuff done when they need to and not be concerned with like the individual liberties of people. Well, I mean, he's said this sort of stuff in interviews before, like it's not a secret. But of course, then they just don't air those interviews, you know, or they don't put a lot of light on them.
The most recent on Peterson was the latest court case that sided with the communist that says he's got to go through re-education camp.
Did you see the UFC fighter Strickland and his interview? He's over in Canada for a fight.
I did not.
So I can't play it because the things he says would get this completely removed and possibly get the channel terminated because he goes hard on the trans community. Like, again, we say we love and want to get better. I again, this is what he says. He said, I'm trying to figure out a way to say it without, he calls it an infection rotting society and he's saying it about more of the individuals and like he goes pretty heavy-handed with it. But when it was being interviewed by the press in Canada, when they start answering, so what do you think about this fight that'll be coming up? He goes, I'll tell you, you're a Canadian press outlet. Tell me, were you all okay with the whole seizing the bank accounts of all the protesters y'all had? Like, are you a communist outlet or are you like a good one? Like, what are? And like, well, we're kind of asking the questions right now. He goes, yeah, but a lot of you are a bunch of commie bastards, like Trudeau over there trying to seize bank accounts from people and yada. And he just goes off on them. And one guy comes up, go like, hey, I'm a ally of the LGBT community. La da da da. He goes, well, if you're like that now, I mean, I don't know why you're even here. I mean, you're not a real man. Why are you over interviewing, UFC fighters? Just he went off on them. He was calling them commie bastards left and right. It was amazing. We need to bring that back. We need to bring back using commie as an insult and actually being very just upfront with saying this is the most evil ideology on the face of the planet. Again, they did things that would make Hitler blush. Okay, it was so insane what the Russians were able to get away with when it comes to the way we look at them compared to the Nazis. Absolutely crazy when you really see it. I mean, when in Ukraine they had to put up, I think it was
tried by the right people.
Oh yeah. It's tried by the Russians, and they're not the right people. The Chinese, apparently, they're not the right people. Was it Cubans, Venezuela? I mean, I love that argument. I always have this. Like some of my friends will say this, they'll say, yeah, but I mean, it's one of those things that it's good in theory, but not good in practice. No, it's a terrible theory. Are you kidding? Your theory is dependent on seizing people's property against their will and killing them if they dare disagree with you. How is this good in theory? Your theory is everyone is a drone and has no individual liberties whatsoever. How is this good in theory?
How about this? It's totally against human nature. Our human nature is that we are spiritual beings gifted with an intellect and a physical body.
Which is why they have to ban the Bible every chance they get in a communist country.
And as spiritual beings, we are always for fuller expression and growth. And communism stifles that independence, growth, and fuller expression that all humans desire and seek within. So it completely is against human nature.
It is the worst ideology that humanity has ever created, and we treat it as if it's just a funny thing. Oh yeah, they're just a crazy communist. I mean, we would never say that about a person who's like walking around with a swastika on their shirt. Like if someone came to Thanksgiving lunch with a swastika on their shirt, we'd be going, what the hell is wrong with you? But they come over, some start spouting out some communist gobbledygook over there and saying, oh, we just need to liberate all the oppressed people and come together as one.
Well, how about American cities with statues of Lenin?
Yes, Seattle.
And kids running around with Mao on their shirt.
Which, again, unless you're okay with people running around with a swastika on their shirt, that should not be allowed. Okay, if you're going to school with a Mao on your shirt, the fact that there's not a dress code against that is amazing to me. Or Shay, right? I mean, Shay, who went around just killing all these gay people, saying that they were, cockroaches of the earth and all this crazy stuff. Oh, he's somehow a hero to the left. He's on every shirt and everything. It's insane what they've been able to get away with. It's because of mostly the mainstream media hiding, of course, the main atrocities of the Soviets, of China, of Venezuela, of Cuba, as well as the education system, who have completely just backed them from day one. I mean, it was really from day one when the Soviet Union started off and started bringing these professors into their country, showing them the good parts of the Soviet Union and making sure they never, of course, saw any of the actual atrocities being committed. And, of course, paying them off and, of course, giving them all these lavish feasts and everything like that to make them feel like kings. So when they came back to America, they were, they saw a route to take power. And, I mean, they indoctrinated a whole generation of people doing it. I mean, we have way more communists in this country than I think anyone realized, and it is not a good thing.
Communism aside, would you be willing to travel to Russia just for historical and
100%.
Architecture? Because some of the architecture and the history and everything is absolutely amazing, and just to see it, I think, would be very interesting.
So I did my college report for Western Civ on St. Petersburg and the construction of it and kind of development as it went forward, because it's an amazing story about how it was nothing but a swamp, and through ingenuity, they managed to make it one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And I saw a video recently going around of St. Petersburg subway station. And it looks like a mansion. It looks so insanely beautiful with like chandeliers and stuff. Like, it just gorgeous. I mean, admittedly, when you can oppress any people who try to ever, rise against you, you can kind of keep that sort of stuff in line a bit more. But I would love to go to see some of the architecture. I would love to go see the history. And I always do have a rule where no matter how much I might disagree with a country, if you visit that country, you respect their laws and you do not step out of place because you are their guest. You chose to go there. You respect their laws no matter how stupid it is. I would love to go to England, yet guess what? If I went there and said the stuff I've said on this stream, I would be in jail.
Yeah, that's the big thing that scares me, is to do something that you don't know is wrong.
Yeah, and which is why I think, mostly keep to yourself to the be very cautious when you're in other countries to a certain degree when it comes to sharing your opinion on things and how things should be. But, I mean, I would love to go to Russia. I would love to go to, it's funny that I'm putting England on par with Russia, but again, they arrest people for making jokes. They're on par with Russia, okay? They're on par with Russia for human rights violations in my mind as well. Same thing with Scotland, Ireland. I love to go to their places, despite the fact if I make a wrong joke, I get imprisoned. Like, that's absolutely insane. I think it was Count Dankula over in Scotland made a video of his pug doing the, Hail Hitler salute whenever he said, like, oh, I can't say what he said. He said jokes about what Hitler would do and going, you want to do that, buddy? You want to do that? And he starts like doing the salute and all that stuff. It was a really funny and stupid video. And of course, like, he walks in the room and his dog's sitting on a computer watching Hitler speeches while doing the salute, which was really funny. He knew he went to jail for that. A simple, stupid video. So,
hey, well, so you love to make fun of these other countries. How about our own country? You make a meme about Hillary, you go to jail.
Yeah. Well, of course, actual politicians can make that same meme about Trump and not go to jail. Actual politicians can commit the crime.
So you make fun of the other countries, but it's not a ton different. The oppression of individual thought and freedom is upon us.
So you want to go down a quick rabbit hole here?
No, I hate going down rabbit holes.
So I was asked by one of my friends about the whole Yemen situation, us bombing Yemen because they attacked, of course, one of our shipping vessels and all that. And obviously I'm against it because, for one reason, it wasn't ever approved by Congress. You need to get approval for Congress before you start bombing a nation, yada, yada, yada. But here's the thing. I've said in the past I'm kind of anti-war. The reality is I'm not anti-war. I'm anti-stupid war. And I'm also anti-war by the way our nation is currently set up, in a way that I don't believe in our country anymore enough to justify going to other countries telling them how they should run, right? My whole issue when it comes to a lot of this stuff about us getting involved in foreign conflict has to do with the fact that we are failing as a country in that way. We are also arresting dissidents. We're also jailing political rivals, or trying to at least. We are also obviously going massively in debt, over $30 trillion in debt. Where do we have a right to go to any country and say, hey, here's how your country should be run, when as far as I'm concerned, we are a failed country to a large degree. We're not as bad as others, but you can't look at a country with this much debt and this much corruption and say it is not to a certain degree failed in comparison to what it was established to be. Now, if we were what I wish we were, if we were a true republic, if we actually, upheld our actual values, to be honest, I would have no issue with imposing our rule to a certain degree on the rest of the world, because that culture is superior. I have no problem with the ideas of colonization. I have no problem with saying, hey, Yemen, you bombed us. We're now going to go over there, seize all of your stuff, take over everything you have, and force you to actually abide by our cultural standards. If I believed we had good cultural standards. The issue is, instead we go to these countries and we say, hey, Taliban, where's your women's programs? Where's your LGBT rights groups? What the hell? We helped you out here. It's ridiculous. And the fact that the Biden administration was confused as to why the Taliban doesn't have an LGBT group was idiotic in itself. But I mean, we funded Saudi Arabia's, we funded like a Saudi Arabia LGBT activism group to the tune of millions of dollars. Now, obviously, they just funneled that money away. But that's my point, is that we are not exporting, or if we're going to colonize other nations, we need to have a positive culture here first. We got to fix this country before we can even dream of trying to fix the rest of the world. And that's the biggest issue. We are a failed country in so many ways. I just cannot see any justification for us ever going to any other country saying, hey, you aren't doing things right, because hell, we aren't either. That might make me sound a bit more of a warmonger-ish in a way, but not. I'm not a warmonger yet.
That was another classic rant that you've got going there. So that's another short. I'm looking forward to seeing how the responses go on that one too.
We should colonize everyone with our great culture.
So I'm not all for that. However, if our ships get attacked, obviously we should attack. But there should be approval. It should come from Congress. Yeah, it should come 100%. From Congress. It's constitutional. We can't have a dictator in the White House, right or left, making that decision.
Which, I mean, Trump nearly did. He nearly tried to bomb Iran without approval, but then pulled back, fortunately. Thank goodness. Even if they deserve it.
He wouldn't have even considered it had the precedent not been set, though.
That's true. And it's funny, the only time they ever said he was presidential is when he started bombing countries again. Which, that should say everything you need to know.
Well,
he bombed Syria once, presidential.
It starts with we the people. We've ceded our responsibilities as individual citizens living a free life. We've ceded our responsibilities to Congress. Congress has ceded their responsibilities to the executive and judicial branches, and it's just gone up the chain. But it started with us ceding our responsibilities and saying, life is hard. I think I'd rather have the government help my retirement. The life is really hard. I want the government to decide this, instead of we the people living as free and living in freedom. And the freedom comes with good and bad, because it's great responsibility with freedom. And we've ceded that freedom to Congress, and now Congress is unwilling to make a tough decision. Why should I make that decision and lose my seat when I can see this power up the chain? So we'll let Bush make this decision, and then when it goes sideways, we're going to just butcher him. Because that's exactly what happened with Bush. And so that now all the power resides in the executive branch when it comes to declaring war and making these attacks. And that is completely unconstitutional and wrong.
Oh, 100%. And like you said, really, they sort of gave Bush approval, but like you said, not really, right? They just handed the reins over to him. But hell, I can at least say they at least voted. I mean, it was wrong. It was not what it was supposed to be.
It was a completely irresponsible vote to just give up our constitutional right.
Exactly.
Their constitution, not right, their constitutional duty.
Yeah. Which, I mean,
so
let's
they
face
voted,
it.
They voted to say that this is a duty enshrined upon us by the Constitution. Now we're just going to say, no, we're not doing it because it's hard.
We don't want to be held accountable for our actions is what it is.
Exactly right.
Because then they can go to, again, every Democrat voted to give Bush that power, but then they all came out and said, but none of us agreed to go to war. Yes, you did. You 100%
They all voted
did.
to give him the power. They all voted him to give him the power, and then came back and said he lied about this and he lied about that.
You did too.
He was using the exact same. He was using the exact same intelligence that Clinton administration had gathered.
And I mean,
and it was wrong all the way around. I mean, we know which country was behind the bombing, and we never did anything with them because there's too much pay to play going on with that particular country.
No, instead we went to the country that was getting off the American dollar as their main currency. We went in there.
I'm sure that was just a coincidence.
We went there and took all their gold.
Yeah, I'm sure that was just a coincidence.
So I know a guy, I'm not gonna go into too much detail because this is kind of really interesting, but he was there when he was an old guy. He was there when the U.S. government actually gave Saddam Hussein a bunch of gold bars and all this crazy stuff. He has pictures with like all these guys in Iraq handing it off. And he was there when they seized the gold back from him after the war, and he has pictures and all this stuff. And in his house, he has a suitcase that was like kind of destroyed and all that stuff that he said had at a point gold bars in it that they were trying to pull out when they were like doing some bombings and things like that. Crazy stories. Again, it was kind of nuts. Went to his house and it looked very like small, and then suddenly we went to his basement. It was like absolutely massive and had all these like him next to like every single president throughout his lifetime, basically. And I'm not going to give any names because I don't know him all that well, but it was an interesting place to visit. But it was one of those things that definitely made me go, yeah, so the conspiracy theorists were kind of right about Iraq.
So this is completely unrelated to any of that. You just mentioned old guys and wars and that sort of thing. Do you remember Mr. Brooks here in the neighborhood?
Yeah.
So he was on the USS Liberty, which was bombed by the Israelis by accident, if you believe the official story, or not accident if you believe the conspiracy theorist. But I don't know if you remember the story, but he was like credited with pretty much saving the ship almost single-handedly, with staying in the engine room and doing a lot of things very heroic. And he passed away recently. I forgot about all that. So he got like lots of accommodations for what he did, but he passed away recently, and they've approved in April for his interment at Arlington with a big ceremony honoring his life.
That's
and his
awesome.
Service.
I mean, it's not good that he'd pass, but it's great that they're actually acknowledging that sort of stuff over there.
Yeah, pretty much until he got to the point where he wasn't out as much. Every morning when I was walking with Russell, he would come out and talk to us. He loved Russell, but he would go out every morning. He'd raise the flag and give it the salute. And
yeah. If only we had more people in the country like him.
So we have a little memorial plaque for him down at the park now, but the fact that they're going to do this big thing at Arlington's pretty cool. So
that's good.
Just watch the community Facebook page. You'll kind of see some things about it.
I'm definitely going to have
Ken
to.
Norris,
if I can sort through all the stuff of going, look at all these houses being built.
Yeah, you got to sort through everybody complaining about the terrible extreme growth we're going through.
Well,
but that's in the Moyoc, not on the Moyoc page. Go to the community page because we don't get that crap on.
So I know it's a little bit late. I had more stories queued up. If you want to go through a couple, we can, or if it's kind of late for you, that's also fine. It's up to you.
I'm good either way.
All right. Well, I'm trying to say, I had a few of them pulled up here that were pretty interesting, but I'm going to go ahead and pull up, I think, the one about the Illinois governor, because I had a lot of fun getting this stuff together. So, pull this up here. The Illinois governor was begging on a radio show to Greg Abbott to stop busing illegals into his state, saying, of course, that they can't handle it, that they're overwhelmed. You are now sending asylum seekers from Texas to upper Midwest in the middle of winter, many without coats, many without shoes, protection from the snow. A city whose shelters are already overfilled with migrants you sent here. Now, the funny thing about all of this is just how much, as governor, he has encouraged illegals to move to his state. So I pulled out a bunch of these old press releases about old bills they were passing all through Illinois. And it's kind of amusing, actually, hearing them complain about now. So here we got one that was back in September, where when they started seeing these asylum seekers showing up, they announced a $41 million grant to all the municipalities actually housing the migrants. Basically, again, encouraging more to come in a way of saying, hey, we're going to make sure we continue to house these people. We're going to make sure we continue to give them benefits. In fact, there was a report showing that the average amount spent per illegal immigrant in Chicago was $80,000 a year. People in Chicago the average person in Chicago isn't living on $80,000 a year. Yet we're giving that amount of taxpayer dollars to each individual immigrant, basically in the line of resources that we're offering them. So $41 million in grants to, again, continue to support the ones who are currently coming to their state. 2019, they were the second state to enact a Immigrant Tenant Protection Act, which is really kind of interesting because they frame it as this is for all immigrants, saying you just can't discriminate based on, where someone's from and that kind of stuff, which sounds all nice. Sure, we don't want to discriminate against someone who's over here legally with a green card, do you? I mean, come on. Except in the bill, it also says immigration status, which covers illegal immigrants. So if you're trying to rent out your house and an illegal immigrant comes up to you and wants to rent that house, you can't say, I'm not comfortable with having someone who's a criminal, who's in the country illegally, renting my property. You will be thrown in jail for doing so under this bill that was passed in 2019. Again, encouraging more illegal immigrants to come into the state. You also have him signing in legislation to provide driver's license to illegal immigrants. So come on down to Illinois. We'll make sure you get driver's license, which gives you, of course, more access to other benefits, as well as, I don't know exactly how you get really good insurance, to be honest, when you're here illegally. I'm not sure how all that works. But again, making it even easier for illegal immigrants to be in the state of Illinois. And this one isn't directly connected to the illegal immigrants, but still shows his stance when it comes to prioritizing foreigners over the citizens of Illinois. Over in August, if I can get this damn ad out of the way, geez, come on. Okay. It actually, and it goes away. He signed a bill that would allow people who are not United States citizens to actually be law enforcement officers. So the cops who are arresting you for breaking the law aren't even American citizens in some cases in Illinois, thanks to his bills. So this is a governor, throughout his entire tenure as governor, has tried his best to make it as welcoming as can be when it comes to foreigners and illegals in general, who's now complaining that, what do you know, illegals are actually showing up to their state. It is so hysterical to watch these people. DeSantis did a great job with this. Greg Abbott's doing a great job with this. Keep sending them to these states. Keep sending them to these cities. Let them bear the repercussions of it. It is.
Well, the amazing thing is they begged for it because they didn't think it was ever going to get to them.
Exactly.
So they did all this just like typical leftists in a way that was going to be all flash and no substance. They didn't have any idea. And the other thing that's really interesting is the number of that are being sent into Illinois number in the hundreds. The number that Texas, California, Arizona, Florida is in the tens of thousands.
Yep.
And all it took was hundreds to overflood this system that is millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of tax dollars supposedly put into place to support. And all it took was just a few hundreds to overrun it and show that it's not workable.
So I thought I had it pulled up here, but I guess I don't have it currently. But there was, I think it was MSNBC, they had someone on saying that it was racist for them to be sending these immigrants or illegal immigrants to these black majority areas, that they're trying to displace black people with illegal immigrants. And all I'm thinking is, well, where the hell do you think they're going in other cases? They're going to majority white areas. If you're going to sit there and get mad at that, then you have to get mad at the other. Either way, illegal immigrants displace people who live there, despite, it doesn't matter what their race is. They displace the people currently there. And it is also funny, of course, because they're constantly saying...
in South Texas, they're displacing Hispanic.
Yes. They're displacing legal Hispanics who are in the country. But now I just thought it's been so funny watching the left actually see the problem at their doorstep, because there always have been in these areas where they've never had to see this sort of stuff before. And seeing it actually happen to them for a change is, I'm not going to lie, really funny. And all of a sudden I'm starting to see some people saying, oh, well, they're also trafficking people in the same way they accuse the Bidens for trafficking them. Well, not really exactly. Again, like I said before, it's okay to hit someone when they hit you first. If you're going to sit there and traffic a bunch of illegal immigrants into Texas, traffic them back over to D.C., to New York. Also, they have the choice to get on the bus or not. Greg Abbott can't just round them up and push them over to Chicago. They say, hey, who wants to go to Chicago? And all these illegal immigrants see all these policies that they're going to be, and all these benefits they're going to be given there. And so they hop aboard.
So how about the out and out lies from the Biden administration and the press about the 3 people killed because Texas is defending their border, when it turned out that they had nothing to do with Texas defending their border that killed them. And it went all weekend long with just getting pilloried for Abbott and the Attorney General Paxton and everybody in Texas, just getting pilloried from every angle, including the Biden administration itself. Just one lie after another. Lie. Quit saying that they misspoke or any other thing. They freaking lied, because Texas is defending their own border for a change and keeping the federal agents out of the park. And it's one park, one area.
And they keep saying we don't have anything to impeach them on. Listen, this is stuff you can impeach them on, okay? Let's be real. When you lie directly to the American people like that, and just that direct of a way.
Hey, it's no different than the whole whip lie.
Yes. I was about to actually mention that. When they said, oh, they're whipping, for one, listen, if you're on horseback and you're chasing down illegals trying to get them to go back across the river or whatever, I really don't care for using your reins to hit them, okay? I really don't, because guess what? You have to get them some way or another and you're on a horse. But they weren't even doing that. It was funny because even at their worst accusation when it comes to that sort of stuff, I'm kind of still like, and? But no, they lied about entirely. They didn't at all use their whips, or they didn't even have whips, actually. It was that the way the picture was framed, it looked like the reins that they were holding was just off to the side. But they don't care. They want people... They want people to get emotional about this stuff.
They literally use the word murder.
Yes. Yeah.
Texas has murdered this poor woman and children. Absolute lie.
Which, of course, no one's going to call them out for having inflammatory language.
No, and nobody's going to call them out for all the deaths that have occurred in the last 3 years of people flooding the country because of their bullshit no order policy.
And of course, Trump says, go to the Capitol and march peacefully. Well, he knew what he was saying when he said that. He was instigating a riot. They go out there and say, Greg Abbott is really murdering people. And you know it.
That was a dog whistle, and you know it.
Well, they say Greg Abbott is really murdering people. Oh man.
Yeah, that whole I'm with you. Seeing the people that screamed for this and set up their own system to take care of it, watching them get overrun with just such a few people, it just kind of shows how government is so inefficient and so poor at doing it.
It also kind of shows you how effective the Republican states really are when you look at how many illegals they have, and they're still managing to run at least somewhat of a level, while these liberal cities and states are collapsing by just having a small portion of them showing up.
Yeah, you know what? I think maybe it used to be a little bit easier because down on the Texas border, you wouldn't find illegals anywhere close to the border, because once they crossed over, they jetted to wherever they could get to on their own, because Border Patrol was patrolling.
Yeah.
And so it didn't used to be, but now you're right. Now it's impossible for the border states to handle it.
And here's the thing, like, again, why would they not try to cross the border illegally at this point? I mean, what's really going to happen to them? I mean, I even say this, even if you go ahead and start deporting them when you find them, I'm kind of on the opinion of, okay, first offense, sure, just deport them back to where they're from, whatever. And they come in again, jail them for like 10 to 20 years, okay? Just go ahead and let's go all out with this, because you can't just allow people to keep doing it. I also say, listen, first offense, we send you back to your home, and we say, listen, you've lost any privilege to ever enter this country again. You can never get a green card. You can never become a citizen. You can never come as a tourist. You have lost all privileges to ever come into our country. That alone would scare some people off if we actually enforce that. But
So
instead, we go home and come back again.
You know how the tax system works. How do you feel about an illegal being able to come in and get a tax identification number that allows them to work? And you would think that's good. That means they're going to pay taxes, but what it
No.
means is they're actually getting refunds.
Yep. And it also gives them access to some other benefits depending on what state they're in as well, if they go ahead and have that on file. And I help set some of them up for that. I mean, when working at a tax office, you point them in the direction where they
It's
get their
legal.
number.
It's legal, but again, it's at every angle. We're talking out of both sides of our mouth, regardless of which party we're on, because the Republicans have never stepped up and said we need to eliminate that program.
Nope. Again,
And how about this? How about Elon? How about SpaceX getting sued because they're not hiring enough?
they're not allowed to hire anyone who's not a citizen. A space company is contracted under the Department of Defense to, I think, to a certain degree is what they said. And so because of that, because you're dealing with what are the equivalently missiles in a way, right? I mean, again, rocket propulsion, right? You're not allowed to have people who aren't legal citizens.
They're under incredible rules for FBI checks and all sorts of things
Yes.
for a citizen to get any type of this work.
So
And
they
the
have to
DOJ
just
from the
legally
Biden
have to
administration
discriminate on that.
sues them. The Biden administration sued them for hiring too many citizens.
Now, for one, why would that ever be an issue, period? If I want to hire nothing but people who I know are dedicated to this community because they are from and live here, I do not know why that should be any damn business of the government one way or another. Now, if someone with a green card wanted to work for me and I was working like at a restaurant, I don't know why I would say no, personally. I don't see why that would be an issue. But if I felt that I wanted the restaurant to only have people who have lived in this town for, for generations, so that way it creates that culture I want to see, it should be my choice as a business owner to make that decision. All right, again, I am against many discrimination laws that are in this country because it's not up to you who I decide to associate with. We have that First Amendment right.
Sounds like a constitutional right.
Yes. And then, yes, that will mean there are some bad situations. Yeah, listen, there'll be some bad situations because of it. But at the same time, if someone tells me, hey, I don't want you here because you're white or because you're Christian or because you're a man, well, I don't want to give you money. I don't want you to have why would I want to pay someone who hates me? It doesn't make any sense. I want them to out themselves. I don't want to give that person money. I want to give my money to someone who I actually agree with when it comes to the idea of values at the very least. So, I mean, I'm against almost all discrimination laws just about. There's a limit, obviously. I don't think the government should be allowed to discriminate against people for, whatever reasons. But private individuals have the right of freedom of association. If I don't want to hire someone who's from outside the country, I should be allowed to make that decision. Now, would I? Probably not, because I just care about getting a position filled if that was the case, especially these days. But the choice should be mine.
Well, in the current state of our education system, you're probably getting better hires anyway.
Ain't that the truth?
That's another topic for another day.
So I got one more thing I want to pop in here that it's very short, but it's a really great story. Ohio legalized basic constitutional carry back in 2022. And there's a whole report here that we could play, but I'm not going to worry too much about that because End Wokeness here actually has the stats. And I checked them out. They're all correct. So far, gun violence in 6 of their 8 largest cities have dropped, like dramatically dropped. There has been an increase in those other 2 cities, but they were by about like 3 and 5% around that range. But Columbus, Ohio, down 12%. Cleveland, down 6. Toledo, down 18. Akron, down 18. I guess that's Parma. Is that, do you think that's how it's pronounced? I've never been over there.
That's what I would say.
Okay, Parma, down 22. I mean, come on. And Canton, down 5. Massive decrease in crime, all because of legalizing constitutional carry. We are, there's a lot of ways we are still kind of up against the ropes, especially when it comes to stuff like illegal immigration, when it comes to them trying to jail, of course, Trump for nonsense crimes. One issue that we have been winning time and time again recently has been on the battle of the Second Amendment. So many states have instituted constitutional carry. In fact, right here is from the USCCA showing all the states that have constitutional carry now as law. We are at, I believe, is 26 states. We have reached the majority of states having constitutional carry. Now, of course, North Carolina, no, but we've still made progress in North Carolina, actually. When it comes to the fact of, if I wanted to buy a handgun, I would have had to go up to a sheriff and say, please, Mr. Sheriff, allow me to have my Second Amendment rights. I really just want to practice what the Constitution has given me the ability to practice, or just how to, or it protects, actually, because again, it doesn't give you the ability, it just enshrines the protection of that basic right. I would have had to go to a sheriff and beg for permission to be allowed to go buy my handgun. Not anymore in North Carolina. But look at all these states right now. All of the green is constitutional carry. We are winning when it comes to a Second Amendment. And we are making so many advances. I really think we're going to see a time in this country where SBRs, short barrel rifles, will probably eventually get legalized, because there's no sense that they shouldn't be, considering the fact they are the best home defense weapon there is. And hopefully we'll get to a point where it'll be easier to obtain, of course, actual like automatic weapons, because right now it's not easy whatsoever. Hopefully we'll get to a point where we can actually import newer firearms into the country that are, because right now it's very, there's a lot of issues when it comes to importing new firearms, which is why all automatic weapons you see are normally from before that ban, because it's illegal. They've been grandfathered in. You can't bring any of the newer ones in. But I really think we're making so much headway when it comes to this. And with stories like this popping up saying, of course, all the crime that drops when you pass constitutional carry, it does nothing but help our case. And once people get a taste of actual freedom, once people have the ability to actually walk around and be protected, they're not going to want to just give that up as easily next time. I mean, we made the mistake back, heck, I think it was Reagan who actually got rid of a bunch of our firearms too. So even Republicans have made mistakes when it comes to the Second Amendment in the past. But I really think we're getting to a point where that's not going to happen, hopefully, going forward. I really think we are really pushing back effectively on it for once.
So without my glasses, I can't really see the legend there. What's going on in North Dakota with the different color?
Permitless carry for residents only. So, which makes sense. I'm okay with that too. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I go to North Dakota, I don't know why I shouldn't be allowed to carry a handgun, but kind of dumb. But then again, I mean, I don't know. They're not. People from Illinois might come in there. You don't want that, right? I mean.
So you're showing the Ohio stats back pre-cell phone days, pre-GPS and all that kind of good stuff. I was traveling for work to Columbus. And so these were the days where you had an atlas and you did your best. And if you had to call somebody, you stopped and hit a payphone. And so I got off trying to get to the hotel. I wasn't sure where I was. And I got on the payphone and called the hotel. And before I could say too much, the guy was like, "Where are you calling from?" And I told him, and his exact words were, "Get back in your car right now. Don't question this. Don't say anything else. You get in your car, you drive 2 exits, west, north, east, south, whatever direction it was. Drive 2 exits, stop, find another phone and call me from there. But you leave that place now." So I did. But that was like, it's one of there's been a few cities where I've been given that kind of advice. Compton, I kind of got that type of advice. Mobile, back in the early 90s, Mobile, Alabama, we had police escorts taking us in and out of some of the schools late at night when we were doing some work there. And so it's been, seen some stuff.
So
But
I
what I love to see are stats like that, because you know where I stand on the Second Amendment.
oh yeah, yeah.
Um, it, I love seeing those kind of stats, and every time, whether it's um, whatever the Second Amendment win we've had is, if you look at it, the stats always work out in our favor.
Yep, every single time. And it really is a case when they sit there and pull up, actually, you know what? I'm going to pull this one stat up real quick, because even when it comes to other issues that they like to point to, and I'm just going to share this. So this was the crime data from 2011 to 2021. And, when they sit there and talk about, of course, stuff like AR-15s and stuff like that, look at all those deaths from rifles. And so AR-15 is obviously a subsection of all rifles. There's a lot more rifles out there besides AR-15s. Of all rifles, 10 years worth of data, 3,229 deaths. Now, that might sound a lot until you realize, of course, how big of a population we actually have, and this is over the course of 10 years. But what makes it even more interesting, now that this person has highlighted out knives, 15,115. But what I think makes it even more interesting is what also beat it was hammers at 4,248. Now, there was a stat that also came out recently showing that London, on average, has a higher murder rate than the entirety of the United States of America as well. Now, yes, it's a little cherry picking one city versus the entirety of the country, but it does go to show something there, right? That it's not about the fact of having guns accessible to you. It's about the people that you have living in your area. If the people you have living in your area are okay with murdering one another, they'll find a way.
With our U.S. stats, you take out, we can cherry pick here, but you take out just a few gun-free zone leftist cities, and we're one of the safest countries, least gun deaths in the entire world.
Yep, I think it was take out St. Louis, Chicago, and I think it was it was one I wasn't expecting, but I think it was like three or four cities, not even the entire states, obviously, just 3 or 4 cities. And we have a lower gun death rate, or just lower homicide rate, than Spain, France, Italy, England, Ireland, Scotland. Like we are down. We go from being in the top 5 to the bottom 5 in the world, actually. And all you have to do is remove a few cities out of the hundreds of cities we have in this country.
Yeah, and all those cities are deep blue gun-free zone cities.
Exactly. So, you say that, all the stats do line up in our favor when it comes to a lot of these things. They really do. It's just, of course, that we don't go by stats. And it was also funny. We also don't.
When they don't, you have to look, because when the stats don't work in the favor, if you look a little deeper, a lot of times they're adding suicide.
Yes.
And they're adding all these things that really don't apply.
Well, when they say gun deaths, they say gun deaths purposely. They don't say gun murders, right? They say gun deaths because close to, it's around like 35 to 40% of all gun deaths in this country are suicides. So when they show this huge number of all these gun deaths, a lot of them are suicides, which means they're going to do it anyway. In fact, if they went to Canada, the government will do it for them. So, because they might argue going, well, guns make it easier to commit suicide. While at the same time saying that Canada is okay to sit there and put literal suicide pods like out of Futurama up. I mean, come on.
I'm really not feeling well. Have you considered killing yourself?
There was a veteran who did that, where he was having back problems, and one of the recommendations they gave him was suicide. It just, man, Canada is a terrible, terrible place. But yeah,
so not overall. The Canadian people are wonderful. The real people,
100%.
And I've been to I think 6 different provinces and all around, and I love the people. The country is beautiful. The government and the authorities are ridiculous communists.
Yeah, well, 100%. Again, like I said before, he's literally said that he likes China and likes the way they run their country. What are you supposed to expect from him? And the fact is, he's also, you want to talk about the problems with other systems of governance, he is elected by a very much a minority vote as well. He did not get the majority of Canadians to vote for him. He got only like 30% of the vote. It's just by the way their parliament system works. it still was more than what the other parties managed to get. So he doesn't have the support of the majority of Canadians.
So 92, Clinton get elected with like 42% of the vote. You wouldn't have been a fan of that?
No, because again, we go by a different system where it's states. So he still won the majority of states.
Okay.
But he did.
So,
that's the thing. Trudeau didn't win the majority of provinces. Yeah, he didn't win the majority of provinces, though. He didn't win, basically.
Okay.
He didn't win a majority of any province. It's just that he got more than the other parties. Like, that's, and it's the way the vote split.
I'm just trying to keep you consistent. I don't want you drifting into this popular vote bull crap.
Oh, yes, me, the crazy Democrat over here wanting democracy for all. I go another democracy rant about how it's the cancer that eats at every society. And I'll say this, you mentioned New York, could we mention this in our last video? So I just kind of want to put this out here real quick because it's not really much to say on it. Jordan Neely, the guy who defended those people on the subway, I think we just put a YouTube short about it up, I think today or it was yesterday. But, he protected those people on the subway from the deranged homeless dude who was going around threatening people. And the judge has now denied his motion to dismiss charges, so they're proceeding forward with it now. So it's official. They're going to go forward with the case. More than likely, he's going to be convicted. Like, let's be real. We don't have justice in this country. We have, which justice do you get? That's kind of what it really is currently in this country. But
we're going to have to create some sort of a modern day underground railroad to get people like that out to freedom.
I know. I don't know exactly what you do to fix it, but since we mentioned it on our last video, I did want to go. I saw that breaking today, and I wanted to at least toss that in because
I didn't see that today. That's
what we need. What we really need to do is, I think we really need to come together and instead. Okay, who's this guy's immediate family? Let's give them a ton of money. Let's just flood the GoFundMe's to their family and make sure that basically if like a dad defends his family and gets prosecuted because of it, let's make sure his family never has to want for anything again a day in their lives. Because we have enough people where we could do that. If everyone just donated like $1 or $2, man, we have so many people who could just easily make sure that a lot of these families are taken care of for decades. And if that was the case, the left would not be so, gun-ho when it comes to prosecuting these people. Now, at that point, they might pull a Canada and start seizing bank account information. I don't know, saying we're funding.
They would. They absolutely would.
Well, they've already somewhat did it. Remember, they I think it was GoFundMe. I think GoFundMe stopped the funding of Derek Chauvin's legal fundraiser that he was doing.
Well, they're tracking your PayPal and everything else for $600. So of course they would shut it all down. It's 100% they would shut it all.
But we got to find a way to do it. There's other means. There's other websites that are not run by these same groups that are more kind of that people don't really know about as much. Instead of going to Patreon, there's Subscribestar. Instead of doing things on Facebook where there's like Minds.com. There's tons of other options. We just got to get to the point where we're actually doing it. I think there is an app called I wish I could remember. There's a whole app that's designed to do this where only places that actually adhere to American values will show up no matter what you're searching. So if you want good beef jerky, it'll show up like places around you that sell good beef jerky that say at least and have had some track record of upholding American values. And so
Buc-ee's comes up number 1 on the list.
I hope so. I like Buc-ee's.
The beef jerky is pretty solid too.
It is actually really good. I had black pepper one.
The problem with all of that though is what they did in Canada is they went straight to the source. They were shutting down bank accounts. They were freezing money. So now just wait till you get central bank currency where we're all on some sort of a central crypto.
Well, you see that's where
you get your social credit scores and everything.
Here's the thing. That would only be the case if they control the crypto. There's ways for me to transfer Bitcoin to someone without the government knowing. There are ways. It's a pain in the butt, but there's ways. Same thing with like other coins like Monero that are specifically designed not to be tracked. There are methods. I'm still bullish on crypto though. I still like the idea of crypto. I think it matches Milton Friedman's idea of competing currencies so well. It is competing currencies, and which is one of the things that he pushed for at one point. So I am all for crypto at this point.
Well, let's shut down the Fed first, and then let's start working on other solutions.
I will say, when you asked all that stuff though, this is where eventually, if we start getting more people watching, where we need to have like just a certain segment only on the Rumble where I can say what I really think about that, because that's a few choice words for it.
Well, what we need for Daniel Perry is we need real sanctuary cities that won't
Yes.
let him get taken, that we can send good people to
You know what?
freedom.
That would actually be a very solid start. If the leftists can make sanctuary cities where you can't go in there and arrest illegal immigrants, let's make sanctuary cities for people who practice self-defense or the Second Amendment in general. You know what? I don't care. I'll
or
go
the
this
First
far.
Amendment, or the First Amendment in general.
Yes. But I'll say this. I will go as far to say is it could be some random gangbanger in New York. If he's being convicted of a crime and the only crime that they can find on him is that he had a handgun on him, if he flees to a Republican state, they should protect him. All right, because even though he might be a criminal in other ways, that must be protected at all costs. We have to protect the Second Amendment. I don't care who you are. If the crime they're charging you with is a gun crime, there should be gun sanctuary states. Yeah, we'll go with that.
No, I got no argument.
Okay, I expect you to kind of push back on that. I'll be honest.
No, got no argument. And the whole Daniel Perry thing, though, that bothers me more than anything.
Well,
I mean, it's a spur of the moment reaction to protect the people around you,
and everyone wants to do Monday morning quarterbacking.
There's no way you can prove that there was an intent to kill.
Also,
there was an intent to incapacitate.
I'm still not convinced the chokehold even was the thing that killed him, mostly because, admittedly, my training when it comes to like MMA stuff was very limited, but we did learn how to do chokeholds, and they're not. Yes, you can perform one that can kill someone 100% if you do it wrong. I don't see where he did it wrong to a point where it would kill the guy. I don't see it. And the dude was a homeless dude who was hyped up on drugs most of the time. I'm pretty sure it was mostly the drugs that killed him, not the chokehold. So I don't know how you can, and I don't know how you can even figure out.
That sounds familiar to a high profile
right?
That we probably shouldn't talk about.
But I have one question I want to ask you before we go, because I don't know what your opinion is on this. I'm kind of curious. We're talking about guns right now. We're talking, of course, about the sanctuary idea for guns. What do you think? Do you think felons should have the right to bear arms?
Do I think felons should have the right to bear arms? I think once your time is served, then either you're fully back as a citizen with full rights, or you haven't fully served your time. So so during the time served, then obviously not. But once you've done your penance, then your rights should be.
If you are afraid of them having a gun, that means they probably should still be in jail.
Yeah.
Either you have a standard or you don't.
I do believe that some people in prison can change their lives, but I believe that's incredibly rare. You see the recidivism rate and how bad it is. But the recidivism rate is so high because we let people out so easily and so quickly.
Yes. That is 100% true. We sit there and say, hey, you get you firebombed a cop car. Here's probation. What do you think they're going to do next time? Which did happen in New York. They firebombed a cop car during the BLM protest. And these lawyers who did it got probation.
Yeah, grandma walking between the velvet ropes at the Capitol gets 7 years or whatever that stupid amount was.
But no, I was curious about that because I'm all for felons getting the right. I was talking when I was doing some campaigning for one of the local politicians in Virginia. Unfortunately, that politician eventually came out to be kind of anti-gun, which is one of the things that really turned me off on working with politicians for a while there, or directly with them at least. I met this one person while I was doing door knocking whose big concern was he wants his right to defend his family again. He said, I have a kid, I have a wife, and I'm a felon. I have a hard enough time finding a job as is, so we can't live in the best of areas, and I'm not even allowed to defend my family because of the felony. And he was like, and here's the kicker. I got a felony because I went skateboarding in my high school when I was 18 and a senior. What he told me was he went skateboarding throughout school when he was 18, that kind of a senior kind of prank type thing. And they said the damage to the property was so high, it warranted a felony. And that still got him basically screwed over when it comes to all that. Because not just violent felons that don't get the right to bear arms in some states, right? Like, and not just federally, but just in general. Felon, you can't own a firearm, even if the felony had nothing to do with firearms. Like, it's pretty
So
crazy how it all works.
in order for me to be like really feeling good about this whole thing, even though I agree with it, I still have struggled with feeling really good about it
Because you know who
because
gets let out early.
we know who gets let out.
But
And
here's the
so
thing. If I'm allowed to carry a gun and defend
if a
myself,
violent murderer gets let out, because I don't think they should ever be let out.
but here's the thing. If all the populace are allowed to own guns, the next time he tries to murder someone, there's a good chance he's getting taken out too.
Well, no, well, I mean, obviously, I'm for the right of
Yeah.
self protection, but and I just told you where I stand on it.
Yeah.
What worries me is the fact that our judicial system is not capable of doing the right thing.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Okay, I was just curious on that one, though, because I figured since we're bringing up firearms, might as well get your take on it. Okay, well, it is 11:45. We need to pick a different day where we can start these things earlier.
Well, I'm all for that. I'm all for that. You called me on a good day last week, man. I was really tired, but I've got this nice new comfortable couch here in the office, and today at about 4:30 I sat down to take a break, and I just went out like a light. So I had a really good like 20-minute nap. So I was geared up for this one.
You got a new couch in there. You got those new lights I see behind you. You're about to get a new computer as well.
I got all the parts sitting over there, man. The case you recommended is stout, man. That thing is like 17 pounds.
I mean, it's not bigger than like
It's
the one I
stout.
got in here. You've seen my case. It's about the same
I know,
size.
but you know how office computers are these days. I'm used to computers that are like this.
You're used to a computer that's the size of a hard drive.
Yeah. Yeah, but I told you this before we started, but I'm most excited for plugging in that SSD drive and getting the speed from that sucker, because that's going to be great.
Just, when you compare like when you're using your phone, how quickly like things can just click sometimes compared to like a computer that you use for work half the time, it's just such a big difference. And the fact you have a M.2 drive instead of the SATA cable SSD like I have, it should be even faster than what I have. Not by a ton, to be honest. They're actually still kind of close, but for one, the fact it just plugs right into the motherboard. I'm not sure if you understand. Like, have you seen how you're supposed to install it?
Yes, I've watched a few videos on this particular case and how these things are going to go, but I don't know what you got planned out for tomorrow. But tomorrow afternoon, paste or no thermal paste or no thermal paste, the build is going to start.
Yeah, just if you need anything, just video call me. Look up Linus Tech Tips. I might just send it to you. He has multiple videos on just how-tos when it comes to building a PC that are fantastic.
Yeah, I haven't built one in a very long time, and I definitely never built one with like 28 fans and the water cooled radiators and all the things that you advised me to do here.
No, the funny thing was, I could have got you some like really just simple stuff that would have been way easier to put together and probably just as effective. But I was like, these Corsair light up fans are only $5 more because I know a person who's selling them used. Well, let's get you the good quality one. Oh, look at that. Corsair water cooling unit. Oh, well, it's not too badly priced. Who needs air cooling? Let's go with that. And you're running an i5. You don't even need a water cooler, to be honest. You could add a good performance out of an air cooler.
The case itself has like 4 fans in it. I've got enough fans over here. I could cool like the whole downstairs of the house.
Wait, did the case come with fans?
Yeah.
Did it come with light up fans or just a standard black fans?
Well, that's a good question. I haven't plugged any power supplies in yet because I haven't started the build. So,
well, I mean, if you look at the fan and it's black, then it's not going to have color on it. But
I haven't taken it apart just yet to look at it that close.
But that's also good. That means it should come with the screws you need, because you should definitely switch those out with the light up ones because it looks nice. I like RGB. I think that's great. Well, Opus is going to try to make a clip of this, I just know. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream right now, and we'll